So I'm going to take it, same steps as what I did with that tutorial I sent you. If I draw a line right down from her hairline, right? So where the head starts to bend back. Can you guys see that, Mark? Well, I can't see it. Make it a little darker. I can see that the chin is out this far from where it starts, right? So the first line I make on my paper is a vertical line that represents this one. And this is where I kind of establish my scale. That's how big I'm going to make it. So I'm going from this big to almost twice size. And it's just random. You know, it's smaller than life size, but... So then, I give myself a mark that represents how far out the chin comes, and that's actually maybe a little bit far. And then swing an arc. These are not chiseled in stone. You're not going to, you know, hang on to these marks no matter what. They're just a starting point to kind of give you a rough guideline. If I'm starting here at the hairline, I have to end up out here with the chin, or somewhere close to that, right? And then thirds. From eyebrow to hairline, eyebrow to the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the chin. And if you look at the photo, a lot of times it will not look like they're even. But if you actually kind of space them out, they usually are. You can even do it like on your own head. Like if you go from eyebrow to hairline, eyebrow to bottom of the nose, bottom of the nose to the chin, they're all really close to being the same. And again, it's not exact, but it gives you a real good kind of ballpark proportion. So I'm dividing it thirds. Make sure there are 3 equal parts and not just 3 parts. Like people have a tendency to just make it into 3 parts and they're not all the same size. Okay, now I'm going to look at, and I can see her forehead angles down, right? Then there's like this, has a corner here, kind of straightens out, comes back in a little bit here at the brow, and then swings out for the nose. So this is where I'm going to start mapping this off as straight lines. So I come down to the brow. This swings in just a little bit. And she has, like, when you look at the middle third on her face, from like her eyebrow to the bottom of her nose, very little of that is actually nose. I mean, her nose doesn't start really angling out to way down here. So a good third of that space is the space between the brow and where the nose starts to come out. So nose swings out, and then it actually flattens. Even though it's really curved, that curve is kind of blunt. So I'm going to flatten that, and then her nose angles back. And I'm doing the whole bottom of the nose. Like in her case, her cheek kind of comes out a little bit, but the back of her nose is like here, just in front. Usually with most people, the back of your nostril, the very back of it, your nose, comes back so far that it kind of comes back to where the nose started. In other words, if you come straight up, it takes you right to where the nose starts coming off the face. And then the nostril here, and again, straight lines. I could actually. And then the upper lip comes out about a third of the way along the bottom of the nose. Opening of the mouth is going to be down not quite a third. It's a little over a third. It depends on how heavy the lip is, but it swings out upper lip comes out, this little step out again, down, and then straight back. And the mouth comes almost even with the back of the nostril. Lower lip is back. If I give myself a line here, it's hard to see because mine has a dark background. If I give myself a line straight down from the front of the top lip, I can see her back lip is in just a little bit. So, comes angle straight out, has like a little flat on it, back, and then into the chin. Chin comes down, has a flat here on it, and then back. So this is kind of the profile. It's not a silhouette. Like, I didn't draw just what I saw of the nose, like sticking past the edge of the face. I brought the nose all the way back, the whole bottom of the nose. This maybe got a little long. I'll change that. Let me fix it. Okay, to find where the eye goes. If we were doing this from an actual person, you would hold your pencil up. But if I bring my pencil so it just covers the eye, right? So just barely covers it. So in other words, the edge of the pencil is lining up with the edge of her eyeball. It's behind her nose this much. If I do the same thing, come down, so it just rests on like the bottom of her upper eyelid. It's here. So her eye falls here. Right? So I found it in relationship to the bottom of the nose. You'll notice now, though, that this space, right, from the front of the eye is too big compared to what it is in the photo. That's because when I first started doing this, I'm just kind of eyeballing it, bringing the forehead down. I can't really get the exact shape of the nose until I get the eye in place, and I can't get the eye in place until I get the nose in place. So, you know, it's kind of this, I have to wait till I get the eye where it needs to go at the bottom of the nose, and then what's going to happen is this angle is going to increase. So the angle on the nose is going to change. So I did have to adapt that. I have to change it. And that happens, I mean, that's not a, I'm going to change her mouth while I'm at it. That's something that just, you've got too many things that are working together, and you just can't do it, you know, just one at a time. So you have to wait till you get one in place. So I have to wait till the eye's in place until I can deal with the shape and the angle on the nose accurately. Does that make sense? So this, you know, because when I'm first starting out, I have nothing really to base this on other than this arc I threw out in there, right? So my arc just got a little bit too thick, so I had to bring it back to get the eye where it should go with the nose. Two things you do not want to do when you're drawing an eye. Two things, and there's like a bunch of things you don't want to do, but two things that people do a lot that you don't want to do. The first is you're seeing the iris as kind of an ellipse, right? Because you're looking across it. And the pupil is going to be what's called a foreshortened center. It's going to be, since you're looking across it, the center moves away from you. We'll do more with that later. So you're looking at it, even with the lens and all that, you're looking at it as kind of an ellipse. You do not want the eyelid open so you can see the whole iris. As soon as your eye opens enough that you can see out of it, in other words, as soon as your eyelid clears your pupil, it stops. If you draw it so you can see the whole iris, you're going to make your person look very surprised. Either that or it's going to look like they've had people stretching their skin to get rid of wrinkles or something. So instead of being up there, the top third of the iris gets covered. Sometimes more. Like sometimes, you know, the eyes are very narrow. So it's going to be something more like this. The other thing that happens is people will draw the eyelid so it ends right at the edge of the eyeball. Your eyelid is thick. It's protecting your eye. So it's going to have a thickness, a step that comes out like this. And it's a pretty pronounced thickness. The other thing that happens usually with the lens is since I'm cutting off the top third of that, the curve actually kind of swings in like this, just because I'm not seeing the other part of that curve where it would line up. Does that make sense? So I have this, head goes back. The crown is going to continue up, right? And that, you know, her hair is pretty thick. So it's going to come up something like this. And your head is pretty much a square. Depending on how thick your hair is, if I take the facial plane, in other words, from hairline to bottom of chin, turn that takes me really close to where the back of the head would be. In other words, except for the crown that comes up, your head is kind of a square, like from the front of the cheek to the back of the head. And then the hair would extend out. A lot of times people will draw the face and then they'll just sort of whack it off. The crown will get kind of flattened and the head will get really narrow, right? If you have thick hair, the head's going to be wider this way than it is up and down. And this photo I had for something else, so it doesn't have an ear in it. So I'm going to pretend I can see it. If I go right across the top of the ear, it kind of lines up, or where her ear would be, kind of lines up with the corner of her eye. Right? So straight back, that's going to be the top of the ear. The bottom of the ear is just about where the top of the upper lip is. So your ear is falling between these two lines. I'm going to measure to see how far back it goes, but usually it's something like if I go from the bottom of the nose to the eyebrow, if I spin that takes me from the back of her nostril to the front of the ear. And that's exactly what I would do if the person was in front of me. I would measure that, right, just like we did the cup, that first class we drew, and compare it. So if I do that in the drawing, I go eyebrow, bottom of the nose, spin that, the front of her ear is there. And it runs at an angle. Your ear kind of angles back with your jaw. It's not straight up and down. And it's going to have kind of a C shape to it, like a backward C. Kind of comes in, same thing, using flats, bends. So I start off looking at all the places that changes direction. The earlobe, and again, this will vary in terms of the proportions in it,